Hi, Albana. Thank you so much for being with us today for this WIA International Development Day. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing well, and it's all summer in Tirana, so it's all good.
You're lucky, and I know how the weather is so good in Albania at this season.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you so much for being with us today. Before we kickstart, because our audience, we have 20 minutes, and audience wants really much to get to the point and get to the topic of today. Just the audience knows who you are, and I'm going to ask you to introduce you quickly, but I just want to remind everybody that I believe from 2017 to 2019, you were appointed as a Deputy Minister for Finance and Economy in Albania. And since December 2019, you are the Managing Director of Lufthansa Industry Solutions. Is that correct? And can you tell us a bit more about yourself, please?
Yes, Romain, yes, that's correct. After a long time in the private sector, back in 2017, I decided to accept an invitation to join the government in the role of Deputy Minister responsible for mainly economic development and foreign direct investments. I took it as a challenge, and it was really every bit of a challenge that I had hoped for. I had an opportunity to get to know from the inside, from the policy perspective, the kind of measures that once introduced in the market can really generate economic growth. Even though it's hard to realize when you are in the middle of it, but then when you obtain a little bit of perspective, you see that even some things, some small measures can have actually quite a huge impact. When I joined, it has been actually quite a recent thing, a special focus on the digitalization, and digitalization had been very high in the agenda of the government, even the current one, but also the current one is now in the third term. It was already digitalization a top priority in the first mandate, and even in the second mandate, where I was also part of the government. And some small measures that have been introduced back in 2013, 2014, actually now looking back, you can tell that they have generated a huge impact in our economy, and also in developing of a sector that nobody thought that Albania actually had a real potential. And this is how I also landed in the new role as managing director of the Lufthansa Industry Solutions Tirana branch. This company had been created in 2017, and let's say at the time that the company was created, it was more like a test to see whether it would be possible to create a center in Albania with young developers who could fit really well with a German working culture, and who could integrate themselves working in the IT software development sector. And I can tell that looking back, in 2017, there was only one company with more than 100 IT consultants or software developers. And now in 2022, let's say 5 years after, there are more than 5 companies with more than 100. So Lufthansa Industry Solutions as such has been, let's say, our company here in Tirana has been fully part of Lufthansa Industry Solutions since 2019. And it started from zero, as I said, in 2017, and right now we have more than 300 employees. About 95% of them are actually IT consultants, highly qualified software engineers working day to day together with our colleagues from the Lufthansa Industry Solutions in Germany, to provide software development services and IT consulting services to all the clients of Lufthansa Group, but also outside the Lufthansa Group. So this has been, let's say, my path, my personal path. But on the other hand, in parallel, as I mentioned in the beginning, some small measures, the correct interventions that you can do from the perspective of the policymaker can have a huge impact on the development of this aspect of our economy. And I'm glad also to support. Now I'm back in the private sector, and obviously I have taken advantage of my network and my connections that I have still in the public sector, and I can tell that the policies from the government are still going on the right direction, and now the ambition is even higher. There's a concrete program to have 10,000 software developers or software engineers by 2030. And
10,000?
10,000, yes,
Wow.
by 2030, which is, let's say, big ambition. But on the other hand, if you tackle it systematically, then I think it's more than realistic to expect that by 2030 there will be a lot of growth in this industry.
This is very impressive. Thank you so much, Albana. I think in your intro you covered more than 4 or 5 questions that I had in mind. So no, that was very comprehensive. The first thing I would like to follow up on with you, and I found this point very interesting, and I know our community and audience is very interested in that. And I felt the same. That's why I want to follow up on that. Is you mentioned sometimes the gap you feel when you're in the policy making and you're trying to change all of that, and you don't necessarily see how much you can have an impact because you're in there. But afterward, you see when you're in the industry how much things can be different, right? And
yes,
I see there is very often a disconnect, right, between the policymakers and the perception that the industry has of those policymakers and how it can change. So can you give us an example of, for Lufthansa Industry Solutions, one of the measures that maybe has been put in place or is going to be transformed now that will really help you? I don't know if you have an example ready, but one of the points you mentioned is youth and skills. And I remember at the time, back when I was working in Albania, there was a lot of discussion about vocational training of developers, trying to bring this new economy into life. Is there something from the policy side that you already see as an impact, especially to reach this goal of 10,000 developers in the IT industry?
Yes, yes. Thank you for this question. Just to go back to the point I made in the beginning. Policy was focusing on fiscal incentives for the software development industry, and this created an attractive environment for foreign investors to set up business in Albania. Back at that time, I was using in my sales pitch towards potential foreign direct investors that Albania was a very attractive place to do business because the government had at the time facilitated through deregulation and digitalization of most of its services. Setting up a business was getting more and more easy, finding a place to do your business. So a lot of places to rent, and also with economic price, and youth that has been educated in the public universities or private universities and were looking for employment in the field of IT. Right now, we are facing some different challenges. As I mentioned, there are now plenty of foreign direct investors who have more or less exhausted the existing resources in the market. So now the focus of the government is to close the gap between the how many people are getting into this industry each year from the university system, and how can we increase the resources that can join the workforce in the field of software development, even though they might not be, let's say, having a degree in computer science. For this, there's a a lot of support, not only from the government, but also from other development funds. I can mention, for example, American Albanian Development Fund that is supporting a lot of academies that are giving a real contribution into reskilling of the workforce. You mentioned earlier vocational education, but now I think, especially for this field, is really crucial that you have people who have a certain maturity and a certain education level, and then they are able to become coders from zero to a Java developer in 6 months using these programs that are offered now by training software development academies. From this perspective, another great initiative, I would say, is that actually the government is supporting a lot of initiatives. This can be through central government, but also local. So I can say, for example, with investment again of Albanian American Development Fund, but also the municipality of Tirana, development of Tumo Center, which is something that in 2030, we have already now some young teenagers that are getting excited and interested about anything that has to do with the digital environment, and that they will be then the next generation that is going to be for us, in this case, our future employees, right? So I think this action is something concrete that helps to bridge the gap between what the market is currently able to produce and how can we actually leverage all the other resources that are still to be considered to join this industry. I think this is something very simple, but at times the government is not expected to do really everything. Even one small thing can have a big impact. On the other hand, I mentioned 5 years ago, we were talking about deregulation and digitalization of some of the services, but a month ago, actually in Albania, 100% of the services are only available online. So it has also in parallel developed on itself. And the presence of a developed industry, such as the presence of our company here, but also other companies that are contributing every day to build this market, this means that there's also a possibility to build the knowledge and the know-how to be able also to support the development of everything that has to do with the digital economy.
That makes sense. I really like that you talk about, two things. First, what I really like the way you think is that because of your experience, you are easily making the parallel between the policy and the operational reality on the market. So I think this is fundamental, because we see a lot on international development. Sometimes I was talking about a gap between the policy making and then the operational thing. Even if there are like a lot of studies to assess what are the needs, etc., at the end, it's only when you manage a business that you see the impact on jobs, on employment, on growth, etc. So that's I really love that. What I like to follow up, if I may, you talk about markets, and what I know is that you talk a lot about all the supports to that education, so that you have a network of jobs and skills that can support the economy. But what about, and yourself in your current role, you are at the forefront of that because you're in the IT and software business solution. But what about the different sectors and how they are impacted by this digital transformation? I know, for instance, for a fact, I read some data and report that, for instance, the financial sector in Albania is very well ahead of its peer in the region and also in absolute numbers in digital transformation. But there's other sectors that are important for the Albanian economy, such as hospitality and tourism, that are less digitized as a sector. And also numbers show that companies in those sectors, they want to invest, I think, up to 30% of their revenues in digital transformation. So there's probably a demand, but it's unsure. I was not sure about how they're going to be able to do that. Do they have the right mindset? Do they know that they can, benefit from that, or how they can get those services. So how do you see, maybe it's a complex question and it's a very long question, but how do you see the link between the policy making at the sector level, the growth of that expertise that you're nurturing, that you said like all those developers are coming, and now they're going to serve specifically those sectors that needs to invest and have a lot of projects for tourism, for all those different sectors in Albania?
Yes. Yes, you're right. And I think you touch on two important points, because both I see, in my view, are very closely related. And with the further development of our economy, especially on the tourism aspect, they will be even more closely connected with one another. And I'm talking about the finance sector, so banking system, and also the tourism. I can say, but this is more like a personal reflection and observation from what I see here in Albania, that actually the pandemics was kind of a blessing in disguise. For the tourism sector, 2020 was definitely a year of shock for Albanian tourism. Probably you've heard or you read, 2019 was the highest ever record number of tourists visiting Albania. So the most successful summer season we've ever had. And then this encouraged the tourism sector to continue to invest and to prepare to their best efforts for the new upcoming season of the 2020. Then in 2020, everything came to a screeching halt, as you know. So therefore, the tourism had to, but also I think this was a good thing, had some time to reflect and address the points that they might have not had a chance to do before, or might not have felt the need to do before. So this opened a new area of possibilities. And I think from the perspective of hospitality, you can say that for any hotel or other, let's say, structure related to tourism, digitalization became a matter of existence, life and death. So they started to increase the use of their booking opportunities. You find more and more businesses that have enrolled themselves into the major booking platforms, but also facilitated the payments through credit cards, for example, something which was not possible before, or due to the big size of informal economy was not even practiced in Albania. I think from 2020 and on, the tourism was oriented towards getting everything they could. So this meant also disciplining in a way themselves towards doing the things how they should be done. This was one thing. The other thing that I also observed is that some simple solution also came up from the pandemics. Due to hygiene rules, for example, you were not supposed to touch a menu. So therefore, many restaurants in Albania or bars in Albania quickly embraced application that was offered by a local startup, that through your mobile phone you could scan, and then you can quickly access the menu and maybe even order, so that to avoid contact as much as possible. So these are small things that had a major impact for the business to kind of educate this industry that through digitalization you can have solutions that are saving money, that are opening opportunities to new market segments or to new consumers that probably you wouldn't have thought about before. And I think this is also closely connected to the economy becoming more formal, and also increasing the level of penetration of the banking system as a payment tool for all the industry. So I think these two connected will have some very strong and positive developments in the years to come. And by the way, this year, 2022, it's just 2 years after the pandemics, the number of visitors and tourists in Albania, at least last time I checked until end of April, is about 25% more than 2019. So I think there are quite encouraging news on the positive developments of exchanges between Albania and other countries, as I mentioned before, also resuming of business travel, but also all kinds of travel, also due to tourism, have increased and will continue to increase. And I think some sort of digitalization is also fueling these positive developments.
Yeah, that makes sense. I understand what you said. It's a bit like if the pandemic became a sort of a trigger for a boost towards even more digitalization. And now with the implementation of those projects and initiatives, there is, it brought the economy, or at least for the tourism, to the next level in terms of capacity to absorb the demand, to answer, to accept that. So it brought to the next level. This is very interesting. I didn't think about it in these terms. Yeah,
absolutely. And there's also a nice positive development in the last 5 years, I might say. The presence in the market of several innovation centers and or startup incubators, which are programs with a lot of support from EU for Innovation or World Bank or other development projects from all the other programs in support of developing economies. And these startup incubators or innovation centers are actually just bringing the market to a step in which everyone that has some ideas, some initiatives, even small things, can have a lot of support in their day-to-day work. Other than my job as a managing director of Lufthansa Industry Solutions, I'm also serving at the supervisory board of a fintech, a young fintech that is established in Albania 2 years ago. And this has to do with, I think I'm not correct, this is the right term, but it's a non-bank payment or financing institution, which will be a little bit like Revolut, for example. And in this perspective, the goal of this fintech is to actually support all the young people, regardless of their economic background, access to banking system, to be able to be provided with an electronic bank account, to a virtual card. So all the instruments that they need to be able to work more in the aspect of digitalization, also of transactions, and having transactions that are more more cost convenient, and overall towards a better integration of our market, even in the global, more in a global context.
This is impressive. Albana, the only bad news I have to bring to you is that we are over 20 minutes and I still have so many questions to ask you. We haven't touched upon the EU. You're talking about those incubators, the link with the EU and other model and startup. But maybe we can keep it for a next podcast, for a next series. If
yes, we can definitely do that. And I will bring maybe some more concrete examples on that. So yeah, it was really interesting. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. We thank you. That was extremely interesting to share your experience and your view. So thank you so much again, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you.